FIREROSE. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm really well, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good. I love your accent. I've always loved that Australian accent.
Thank you. That's so sweet. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. So you're a Sydney girl, born and raised in Sydney. Then you moved to Los Angeles, ended up in Nashville. There's a long history there that I'll let you talk about. Um, so you have a lot going on. You have a new single that came out a couple of weeks ago, Shining Armor, Rise Again, which was released on October 31st, Halloween. And you also have a new podcast series, and it's No One Asked Her, which is, I think you said that just launched. So tell me your story. Tell me about growing up in Sydney and how you got interested in songwriting.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, my podcast literally launched this week. So it's like really exciting because, I'm sure it's like it feels like every time you release a creative project in the world, it's like a part of you that you're then sharing with everyone. And it's just, it's exciting, it's scary, it's all the things, but it's been received really well. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And I'm so excited about the guests I have coming up, and it's a new chapter in my like creative endeavors, and I'm really grateful for that. I grew up in Sydney, and which is obviously the oh my gosh, the opposite end of the earth. And like I moved to America when I was just 19 years old. I didn't know a single soul. I just always felt it deep in my spirit. Like I'd been writing songs since as long as I can remember. As soon as I could speak, I was writing songs to try to express my understanding of the world. And I think like a lot of artists, it's just our avenue and our way of trying to make sense of everything. So for me, I'd come home from school and I'd write a song about my day, and I thought that was quite normal until I realized how weird it was. Maybe at about like 7 years old, at a particularly like awkward talent quest. Where I taught my friends this song that I'd written, and we did a dance, and basically the judges, the teachers were like not impressed. They're like, no one in the audience knew that song, and you should pick a more better song next time. And I'm sort of thinking,
Funny.
like, I didn't like, I didn't, so I was just like deeply, sort of, oh, maybe I don't belong here. Like Australian culture is wonderful. I absolutely love Australia more than, it's the most beautiful country in the world. But in terms of really sort of supporting artists and it's a different climate. It's just like a different culture there. So I really felt like I kind of a bit of an alien until I arrived in America, and then I was like, like, all these people, do the same thing as me, writing songs about their life, and I felt like I'm finally home.
Yeah, well, songwriting, I mean, it's so cathartic, and I started writing. I'm a musician as well. I started writing and singing when I was like 11 or 12 years old. I totally get your story, and I had a kind of a tumultuous, growing up experience. So it really helped me through that. Do you find like songwriting for you is a great way to get your emotions out and deal with? I know you've had some challenges in the past. That we're going to talk about a little bit, but do you find that that's really cathartic for you to just kind of get it all out there and release it to the world?
Yes, definitely like the most cathartic and the most therapeutic really of all the things that I'm able to do, and having the gift of songwriting is like, to me, this sort of um it's hard to explain, but I can only imagine it's like, sort of like doing a physical painting and getting it out of you. So it's like that trauma and those really difficult challenges, you're alchemizing that pain into something beautiful. And so it's like in the process of getting it out that I feel like there's just so much power in that. And for me, my entire life, it's been like this one thread that is just this constant, obviously the songs have changed since I was like a 5-year-old kid, thankfully. But in terms of like that experience, that's really kind of, remained the same.
Did you actually I read that you came from a musical family, such as symphonic musicians. Tell me that story. How did that influence you as a young girl, young artist?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of like professional classical musicians in my family. So like my uncle is the principal, he still is the principal cellist of the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra.
Wow, that's amazing.
Grandma was a piano player, and so like I always felt like pop music was really my thing. And so I didn't quite fit into the classical framework. It was sort of almost like, turn that stuff off. Like
Yeah,
that's
different world.
and so I like listened with my Discman and like sort of I just had this relationship with music and other artists that were making this like phenomenal music that spoke directly to my soul. And I just thought like this is what I want to do with my life. Like I want to create songs that make other people feel the way that these songs make me feel.
Yeah. And music kind of really, I mean, I know for me, and I would imagine for you too, it kind of really grabs your soul. And once it does, it's really hard to let that go. It becomes your passion, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like I feel like I mean over the years, like every time I find a new song that's like my new favorite song, it's like it becomes almost like a part of your soul. It's sort
Right.
of it's because I feel like music has the power to bypass almost like your brain, trauma, any part of you that's like that very kind of human psychological part. It goes directly into your heart. And I think that's the most like powerful thing of all, because you can say something lyrically, and the power of that with a melody, and people feel it, and then they can't even explain to you. And that's the most beautiful thing, is like when, someone's like, I can't stop listening to this song, and it's just like healing me. And you're like, wow, it has that power. It's the
Yeah.
cool.
And it can be a very personal thing. And like you said, it sort of becomes the fabric of your soul in a way.
Yeah.
So tell me about your single, Shining Armor, Rise Again. I know that you kind of mentioned in some of the information I was reading that was very cathartic for you because you'd gone through some tough relationships. Some were public, and that's, something that is out there. But tell me about that for you. Like, what was your motivation for writing that song?
Yeah, so my incredibly amazing, brilliant friend Erin Molan, who she's a Australian TV presenter. She's sort of like a household name in Australia, and she's just a extraordinary soul. Like she is one of my best friends, and unfortunately we have this thing in common that is a horrible thing to have in common with any friend, which is that we're both survivors of domestic abuse. And so it's never something that you want to have in common with someone, but it's also like really nice to know that you're not alone in such a traumatic experience, because it's such an isolating thing, for anyone, any of your listeners who have been through an abusive relationship. It sort of it takes away everything from you, and in those years you're kind of you become almost like a shadow of the version of yourself that you really are, because you're very isolated on purpose. It's so difficult to sort of explain if you haven't been through, or you haven't been close to someone who's been through that. And so she sent me these words that she'd written. She's not a musician herself, but I think she's brilliantly talented as a writer. And she'd written these words that, like a poem, and she sent them to me, and sort of said, like if they don't inspire anything, that's totally fine. But and immediately I was deeply moved. I went to the piano, sat down, and Shining Armor Rise Again like came out. And it was one of those moments that I really, I felt like it was designed by God, because it was both like healing for both of us. And of course, when I sent her the demo, like, she was so beautifully emotional, and this is beyond what I could imagine. And so bringing that to life, and really like using her words to combined with mine to make this song was just something really powerful.
Yeah, and it's a great song, and I saw some of the interviews you did with her and Australia TV, and
Yeah.
yeah, and it's great. I mean, like you said, those times, sometimes those things are sort of gifts from God. You kind of feel that. Tell me about a little bit about your faith, because I know you're a woman of faith, and that's really important to you, and that's even some of the songs that you've released talk about that. Tell me a little about that with you.
Definitely. I mean, my relationship with God is everything. It is just the center point of my life, and everything that I do stems from that, because without God, I wouldn't be here. I've had so many miracles in my life happen, in terms of like, these really dark seasons that I've gone through. I was in a very bad way with addiction in my 20s, at like a hopeless drug addict, and I was literally saved from an LA County jail cell when I was 28 years old. And I, for every single day since then, have I mean, I always had a relationship with God, but I really dedicated my life to like, you know, praying every day for his will for me and trying my best to walk in alignment with that. Sometimes, you know, I go off track like we do because he gave us free will. But he's always been there for me, you know, through the difficult seasons since. Thank God I literally have, you know, I'm coming up to 10 years of sobriety now in May, which is absolutely like a miracle, because I couldn't go, you know, even just an afternoon without using. At the worst point, it was just a really hopeless situation. And it was only by his power and that infinite loving grace that he, you know, bestowed upon me in that season that I survived. And so I feel almost like everything beyond that is just a bonus, like a blessing that I'm not worthy of, but here I am, and I still have air in my lungs. And so, you know, I'm doing the best I can to honor him with everything that I do.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you mentioned doing the best I can. Like, I think that that's true for all of us. That's sort of, you know, once you realize that, like, hey, I'm still in here fighting. I get up every day and keep a positive attitude. That solves a lot of problems, I think. You know,
Definitely.
for not only for artists but for people in general. Talk about collaborating. So I know you have a history of collaborating with different artists. Some are very well known, some lesser known. But tell me about how that works for you. Is that something that you enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, I love, like, I'm a songwriter at heart always. So if I one of my songs that I've, you know, written, that someone who like has their own artistic journey and they relate to it and they love it and they want to jump on it, that's always, you know, so lovely and humbling and cool, and all of the things. My favorite thing in terms of collaboration is kind of like the way that Shining Armor with Aaron came about, is that like writing, the process of writing, you know, something from scratch and creating something new in the world. I have the most amazing co-writers who I collaborated with on this last album. My dear beautiful friend Mia Fields, who, you know, she's written some of like Zach Williams' greatest hits, and you
Awesome.
know, Lauren Daigle, and so I mean, yeah, so many artists, Ben Fuller, and a lot of Christian artists. I mean, she's just phenomenal. And so I wrote, you know, a couple of my new songs coming out on the next album, as well as the last album with her. And it's just like the most wonderful thing when you know, turn up to a session and you've got this idea on your heart, and you sit there for hours and hours and, you know, finesse the lyrics and the melody, and you
Yeah.
create this thing that with your friends that, you know, didn't exist before. It's like the funnest thing to be able to do, and I love that part of collaboration.
Yeah, and it's sort of like molding something from clay, right?
Exactly.
It's also when you release a song, even like your new single, it's sort of like your child you're putting out into the world.
Yes.
Like
Literally,
you're very protective of your child, and yeah,
it so is. It feels like you're, you know, yeah, you're giving birth to this thing that, you know, didn't exist before. And it's very, I'm sure, all the things. I mean, I can only imagine. I have a puppy, but I can only imagine like them, like a human child, and everything that comes with that, and feeling like, you know, you're on your own now. Like, go out
yeah.
into the world
Go
and
out there and do your best, young man. Exactly. What so you've I mean you mentioned that you've had some trials and did things that you've gone through and a lot of success as well. Talk about like giving advice to young artists, especially young women in the industry, because you've dealt with the good and the bad. What's some things that you've learned that you could impart on people that might be listening?
oh my goodness, that's such a good question. And I wish, to be completely honest, I wish the industry was, you know, already different. I'm doing my very best with it, you know, my limited capability of trying to be the version of me that would, you know, have been able to protect my younger self, in terms of, especially for young women. You know, I arrived with knowing no one, and that was very evident in the kind of predators that I attracted into my life, unfortunately, in my early years. And it's really difficult to navigate that, especially when you're like most female artists, especially. I feel like we are so open-hearted, we're so like, that beautiful trusting nature is just like innately within us, and that can be obviously like taken advantage of by the wrong people. That doesn't mean that, you know, there's that doesn't mean that everyone is like that. Absolutely not. There are so many phenomenal, incredible men and women in the industry. It's just really hard to navigate that. So my best advice would be trust your instincts. Like if you're in a situation, if in a new studio situation and you're there and someone makes you feel uncomfortable, even if it's like your instincts, your God-given instincts and your intuition will tell you before that something's off. And I think sometimes as women, we're sort of like taught to be like polite and accommodating and override that.
Be
But
nice, be
yeah,
likable. Yeah.
but and often, I mean, when I retrospectively look back at, some horrible situations that happened, always my instinct told me before the really bad things happened. So that would be my best advice, is just to trust that and don't doubt yourself.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because like a lot of people like, I kind of felt weird, but I don't know. And it's like, no, that's that. And even you mentioned even God, that's God's way of telling you, pay attention.
Yes, I feel like that's why, he gave us almost like this internal discernment, which is something that I feel like is innately within us, but I think sometimes society and, the way that we're taught to trust that is not as clear as it should be. And I think it's just so important because, yeah, your body will tell you before your brain sometimes.
Yeah, and that's why your story in particular is really important, because you've been there, you've lived it, you've had success, you've dealt with all that, and you've come out the other end successful and positive, and you have a great vibe and a great spirit, which I can feel talking to you. It's super important, but also it's important to be like not always try to be nice and don't always worry about being liked. It's more about important being authentic to yourself, right?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I wish sometimes I could go back and, be that 22-year-old version of myself and do it completely differently. And I certainly would, with the knowledge that I have now. But I also know that, that's also God's plan for our life, is that those really difficult times and those incredibly painful lessons that we essentially have to learn are sometimes exactly what we need to go through to become the versions of ourselves that we are today, writing the songs that we are today. So, as excruciating as those times are, it's like you can't know what you don't know until you know it.
Exactly. And lessons is the key word, because I believe we're here to learn. This is our classroom. But,
Yeah.
But you want to make it where it doesn't, overwhelm
I
you.
wish, like, and my deepest prayer is that I could, impart that wisdom, hopefully, with young girls and women who don't have to go through any of what I did. Like, that was
Exactly.
the best thing in the world, is that they were like, I heard that podcast and I was in this situation and I did exactly what you said and I left, and it's like, and the bad thing never happened. That would
Yeah.
be
Yeah,
that would
and it's super important. Yeah, you want to protect, especially young innocent girls that, I mean, I grew up in Hollywood, I grew up in LA dealing with all that. And even as a guy, it's hard to navigate,
yeah.
let alone a woman. I couldn't even imagine how hard that would be. Um, Tell people how they can find you and find your single online.
Yeah, it's everywhere on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, all those platforms, and YouTube. There's a music video that I actually directed myself and shot in New York, and I actually edited it myself too. So it's definitely like a labor of love, and
Awesome.
every frame, is my has my soul in there, and it really meant a lot to me because the video is literally the juxtaposition of me in physical chains sitting in the middle of Freedom Tower Square in New York, and all these people walking by, and just feel it's like to me it was like a very powerful visual representation of what it feels like to be in an abusive relationship, and then the juxtaposition of that being the Statue of Liberty and the performance, and she's free and she's herself again, and it's just, yeah, it was very cathartic to shoot that, and be able to like deliver the piece of visual art to go with the song, that hopefully people can be inspired by, and if they're hopefully if they, God forbid, are in a situation where they are in an abusive relationship, if they can hear the song, if they can watch the video and feel that, that hope is my greatest wish, that they can know that that's not the end of their story, that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and do not give up, because it can get really bleak.
Yeah. And every day we wake up is a new start, a fresh day. So we can always reinvent ourselves. And that's an important message for people, especially young people that feel maybe hopeless at times or are in a bad relationship. Every day you can change, every day you wake up is a gift, right? So you can change your path if you want to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's so true. That's really
Yeah.
well said.
So everybody, please check out "Shining Armor," Rise Again. That's already out. It's out on all the streaming platforms. It's a great song. I checked it out. Also, the video is it's fun, but it's also powerful at the same time. And also your new podcast series, "No One Asked Her," which is on all the podcast outlets, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Spotify, all the usual where I'm at too. So thank you so much for joining me and taking the time. I really appreciate it. It's really awesome to talk to you. And I'm really, proud sounds like a funny word, but I'm really proud that you got through all that and that you're a positive person.
Thank you. That means so much to me, and I really appreciate that.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're very welcome. Have a great day. And hope maybe sometimes I'll get a chance to see you live perform.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know when you're in LA.
I will. Yeah, absolutely. I get out there and I get to Nashville and all sorts of places. I'm always traveling. So
That's awesome.
awesome. Thank you so much, Fyros.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.